This video is brought to you by AmeriUSA.com, where you can screen tenants 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In this episode, we will be discussing Michigan landlord tenant laws. The following is a summary of landlord tenant laws in the state of Michigan as they apply to residential rental property. Topics include disclosures, withholding rent, the right to enter, security deposits, eviction, increasing rent, and more. Required disclosures. Move-in checklist. Landlords must provide tenants with a move-in checklist. Contact information. The rental agreement must include the name and address of the landlord for the purpose of service of process, notices, and demands. Truth in Renting Act. The rental agreement must state in a prominent place in type not smaller than the size of 12-point type or in legible print with letters not smaller than 1/8 of an inch, a notice in substantially the following form shown on the next page. Notice. Michigan law establishes rights and obligations for parties to a rental agreement. This agreement is required to comply with the Truth in Renting Act. If you have a question about the interpretation or legality of a provision of this agreement, you may want to seek assistance from a lawyer or other qualified person. Michigan law will allow a landlord to present this language either directly in the lease agreement or in a separate disclosure form. Domestic violence. Either the rental agreement or a conspicuously posted notice or a delivered notice must contain the following statement when tenancy begins. A tenant who has a reasonable apprehension of present danger to him or her or his or her child from domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking may have special statutory rights to seek a release of rental obligation under Michigan Compiled Laws 554.601b. Security deposit. Within 14 days of a tenant taking possession of the rental, the landlord must provide a notice with the landlord's name and address for receipt of communications, the name and address of the financial institution or surety where the deposit will be held, and the following statement in 12-point boldface type that is at least 4 points larger than the body of the notice as shown on the following page. You must notify your landlord in writing within 4 days after you move of a forwarding address where you can be reached and where you will receive mail. Otherwise, your landlord shall be relieved of sending you an itemized list of damages and the penalties adherent to that failure. Security deposit limit. The maximum amount of the security deposit cannot exceed the equivalent of 1 1/2 months' rent. Deadline for returning a security deposit. After the tenant has moved out, the deposit must be returned within 30 days, along with an itemized statement if any deductions are taken for damage, unpaid rent, etc. Tenants have up to 7 days to dispute any deductions or surrender the right to dispute. To ensure timely communication, landlords should remind tenants of their obligation to provide a forwarding address within 4 days after they move out. Late fees. There is no Michigan statute addressing late fees. Therefore, in order for late fees to be enforceable, the lease must specifically mention how much can be charged and when. Increasing rent. Month-to-month tenancies typically require a 30-day notice to change the terms of the agreement. Longer-term leases must spell out the details of an increase or one may not occur. Withholding rent. When the conditions of a rental affect the health or safety of its occupants as determined by an enforcing agency, a tenant may withhold rent if the landlord fails to make timely repairs by making rent payments into a court-approved escrow account. It is up to the judge to decide how the funds are to be used and when rent may resume being paid to the landlord. For more information, see Michigan Compiled Laws, Section 125.530. Terminating tenancy and eviction. A 7-day unconditional quit notice may be used for failure to pay rent or willfully or negligently causing a serious and continuing health hazard or damage to the premises. A conditional 30-day notice to cure or quit must be used for holding over or if the lease provides for termination for violations of its provisions. An expedited 24-hour unconditional notice to quit may be used for the manufacture, dealing, or possession of illegal drugs on leased premises. However, the landlord must first file a police report and there must be a lease provision allowing termination for this reason. The right to enter. Although Michigan doesn't address a landlord's right to enter, a landlord should provide the tenant with a reasonable notice of entry. This is commonly 1 to 2 days. For more information, additional laws and articles can be found at AmericanLandlord.com.